Welcome back to the Simply Real podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Maharaj. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can stay updated for all my future podcasts. Make your way over to my YouTube channel at Simply Real. Check out all my motivational videos. And don't forget to give me a follow at Simply Healthy and Organic on Instagram. Welcome back, everyone, to the Simply Real podcast. So today's podcast is actually a really special one. It was a wisdom talk that I did about knowing your self-worth and self-value, but it became so interesting because I had a special guest, Donovan. Donovan was an amazing, inspirational person who just dropped so many gems. And this is actually part one of our interview that we did on wisdom. So stay tuned because there will be a part two, but I definitely wanted to intrigue all my listeners with this amazing interview. So check it out. Stay tuned. Hello, good afternoon, Wisdom Community. Hope everyone is doing well on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about knowing your value and self-worth. This was something that I really feel is an important topic. First, let's start with what is your self-worth and your self-value. What is it that you believe about yourself? One's self-worth as a person is how you perceive yourself and, the opinion that you have about yourself and the value that you place on yourself. And this topic is really important in anything that you are doing in life, in any endeavors that you're trying to reach, any goals or perceptions that you have, anything that you're trying to accomplish. It all comes down to what you believe and how you perceive yourself. And it's really important that you understand how important your self-worth and just understand your value in your abilities to do things. Many people look towards others to give them satisfaction about their self-worth or self-value, to help them recognize their own self-worth. But it's really up to you to recognize that. It's really up to you to recognize what you mean to yourself and how you place yourself on this universe. The fundamental part of being who we are is being able to see who we are, being able to feel who we are, being able to act like ourselves, and being able to place value on ourselves as individuals. Self-worth is really defined as the level of importance that you place on yourself and how you define yourself on your journey to whatever it is that you're setting out to do. On your journey to recognizing self-worth, sometimes we tend to compare ourselves to others. Sometimes we tend to define our self-worth as to what other people are doing and set a different standard. And often that tends to bring us down or bring us into a perspective that we hold ourselves, not at a high standard as everybody else. And that sometimes happens because we don't often recognize our true value. We don't often recognize our potentials and how much we really can accomplish. And a lot of it has to do with, I will say social media. As you are jumping on social media and we're in that time and phase of social media, everyone is looking towards other people's posts to see what they're doing, to see what their new reels are, to see what their new videos are, their brand new posts are. And if it doesn't live up to what you expect for yourself, or maybe it's not what you expected, then you sort of set that standard for yourself and you bring your self-worth down. And this happens to everybody. I am guilty of it myself. But it's important to look past that, and it's important to understand the elements, the core elements that contribute to you as a person and an individual, and how much you really mean. Understand what those core elements that make up who you are. It's not only about what other people around you are doing, but it's more about what you perceive. It's more about how you look at the world and how you are able to grasp information as the individual that you are. And self-worth shouldn't be about the job that you have. Your occupation should not determine the value you place on your life. We all are in different stages of our lives and our careers. Some of us are entrepreneurs, some of us work 9 to 5 jobs, some of us do both. There's so many different varying levels of who we are as individuals. And I don't believe that your self-worth should be measured according to your career. I think your self-worth should be measured by your core values, by what you believe, as I said, and what you hold accountable for yourself. Self-worth is not about, if you're healthy or sick, if you're rich or poor. It's not about any of those things. It's about you as an individual. It's about the core values that you are putting within yourself. Are you compassionate? Are you kind? Are you loving? Are you empathetic? Are you understanding? Are you able to truly look at a situation from a different perspective? Are you able to truly focus and accept your weaknesses and allow that to help you find your strengths? Are you able to focus on some of those things? All of those determine your self-worth and your self-value. The importance of self-worth helps you to make better choices consciously. It helps you to really have a better outlook on life and be able to satisfy your mind while you are achieving goals, while you're setting out to achieve these goals and trying to figure out how to navigate this life that we are all in together. I've come across so many people, that speak about themselves in a way that they don't recognize their own self-worth. They don't recognize their own self-value. And that is because maybe they have been through a life where they were surrounded by people who were not speaking, positive words into them. A lot of us have these limiting beliefs about ourselves where we often think that because we've gone through this or because we have, this situation happen to us, that diminishes our self-worth and our self-confidence and who we are as individuals. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that all the experiences that we have as humans, I think every encounter that we experience, whether good or bad, yes, it does contribute to our self worth, but in a positive way, if we allow it to, if we allow it to be positive, if we allow it to be something that's great and unique that's happened to us in our life. And that can be tons of things, from a life changing event to being diagnosed with a chronic illness like myself. For those of you tuning in who may not have heard me on Wisdom before, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's at a young age. And once I received that diagnosis, a part of my self worth and my self value diminished, because at that moment, I honestly thought that there was probably not much more that I can do or accomplish. And I let that happen to myself because my self esteem and my self confidence, really diminished. But after a while, I was able to build that back up, and I was able to recognize all the characteristics that I had that made me me. I was a mom, I was a wife, I was a sister, a daughter. I was unique and bold and beautiful and loving and kind and compassionate. And I knew what my core values were. And I began embracing those core values of faith and hope and persistence. And all of that is what helped me to gain back and recognize my self worth and recognize my true value for who I was as a person. And I didn't need anybody else to give me that validation. I didn't need anybody else to help me to see that. It was all about me being able to see that for myself. And I think that's one of the important things that we should come away with, is knowing your self worth and knowing your value has to truly come from within yourself, has to truly be the product of what you are thinking and how you are navigating your emotional outlook. And, we always tend to compare ourselves to other people. As I mentioned about social media earlier, we tend to look at how others are living their lives and we want to either be just like them, be better than them, or hold ourselves to a certain standard. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with wanting to be like someone who is in that like minded realm that we maybe want to achieve. It's not a bad thing that you may want to look towards someone who's already achieved success and you're saying, okay, that's something that I'm setting out to do. That's okay. But you should never bring yourself down and say that you are not as good as that person or you don't have the skills or capacity to fulfill your dreams like that person. Those are things that bring down your self worth and your value. And it's important to know that you are able to control those thoughts. You are able to be in control of how you see yourself, how you decide that you want your self worth and self value to be viewed. So, again, I appreciate all you listening. For those of you that have come on, if anybody wants to jump on and have a conversation, I welcome you to join. I'm just wanted to come on today and do a little talk about this because I've just been having so many conversations with people passing by about how they speak to themselves, how they recognize themselves in this world. What is it that they think about themselves, and it all comes down to like their self worth and self value, and being able to adopt that that attitude of having a positive self-worth and self-value of yourself really comes down to being able to cultivate that mindset and being able to accept all the bad and all the good that's coming our way, regardless. We're able to boost our self-worth when we're able to look at situations, even though they may not have been the most ideal situation, and say, okay, you know what? I've learned from this situation. I've been able to mold my thoughts and my emotions and my actions and my experiences to come away from this situation with something good and with something that's positive or with something that has helped me to grow and build myself. And that is the true way of recognizing your self-worth and self-value is when you are consciously able to make that connection and say, okay, even though this happened to me, even though this life-changing event of being diagnosed with Parkinson's came into my life, I'm still able to find happiness. I'm still able to achieve all the things that I look towards. And that is what builds your self value and self worth. That is where you begin recognizing who you are as an individual. We all want to achieve, happiness, success. We all are looking for those things that make us feel whole, that make us feel like that's what we need for us to complete us. But sometimes it's about knowing what you want for yourself, for your inner self, truly. Do you really want to have money and success, or do you just want to have happiness and a family? You really have to dig within and understand what those characteristics are that you're looking for that molds your self-worth and your self-value, because that's going to be different for everyone. As you begin to build that out, as you begin to understand your self-worth and your value and how it relates to the people that you speak to on a daily basis, how it relates to the connections that you make, how it relates to the job that you may have or the relationships that you're in. All of these can drive your ability to do well in these situations. Once you know your self-worth, once you gain that value of truly recognizing who you are and how valuable you are, then you're able to truly pursue your passion. Then you're able to truly find that persistence that makes you who you are, makes you worthy of being able to go out and achieve your dreams and achieve your goals despite thinking that you might fail. And that's the number one hope that holds us back, is that sometimes we don't recognize our own self-worth, and often it holds us back from being able to take risks and being able to do things because we often think we're automatically going to fail, or we're automatically not going to be able to do this as well as somebody else. And as you begin to speak those words into yourself, that's you begin to feel that and believe it. We always talk about how important it is to watch what you say and how you think, and those words that you use for yourself to consciously, describe you as a person. All of those things add value. All of those things become part of shaping who you are and what you believe about yourself. So it's really important that as you begin recognizing your self worth and your value, it starts with how you speak to yourself. It starts with how you believe yourself and perceive yourself amongst not only amongst people around you, but just within yourself. And sometimes I also think it helps to sit down and just sort of map out what it is that you feel is valuable from yourself. What are those special characteristics that you have that sets you apart? What makes you special and unique? And we all have those things. Don't ever think that that question cannot be answered because you may have something different about you. Maybe you have a disability. Maybe you have a chronic illness. Maybe you are, still looking for a job and you're in between jobs. Maybe you're an entrepreneur who's striving and you haven't made it yet. Whatever the case is, all those things make you unique and special. All of those are positive qualities that add value to who you are as an individual, and they allow you the opportunity to recognize your self worth and to recognize your self value. And, I want to go back to those core values because I think once you begin to understand what core values that you live by and you truly are implementing them, that's when you're able to really embrace your self worth and self value. And again, those core values can be different for everybody, right? So some of the most important core values that come to my mind are, like honesty, consistency, persistence, dependability. All these things are great core values. Integrity. So it's really how you look at it, and it's really about how many of those core values are you truly embracing? How many of those core values are you truly implementing in your life? What is it that you are setting out to do, and how are you truly achieving it? So again, my name is Jennifer. For all those listening in, if anybody wants to jump on and talk with me, I would love it just to have a little interactive conversation. Oh, I have a guest waiting. So we're talking a little bit today about knowing your value and self-worth, and we have a guest. Hey, Donovan.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. This is a nice topic, knowing your value and self-worth. This is a great topic. Definitely good for the wisdom community. Um, so yeah, knowing your worth and self-value is very good. You know, we got a lot of people struggling with mental health right now. So the best thing that I would say about this topic is that it does take some consistent scheduling. You know what I mean? For me, that's how I did it and was able to kind of get my anxiety under control. Was journaling, getting into some activities, and it helped along the way. Stuff that I was internally interested in and stuff that I was just like learning about, like reading. Reading helped me a lot. Um, like regular exercises, jump rope and stuff like that helped me and my experiences. Just different things that I was trying out helped me on this this journey. You know what I mean? So
Right. No, I love what you're saying. So everything that you just said is a part of really recognizing who you are as a person, because it gives you the opportunity to be aware and to be present within those moments. So journaling is an awesome way because you're able to really release your thoughts and emotions, and you're
exactly.
able to really become conscious about, all the creativity that you have within you and all that innovation that comes out. So I find journaling to be an amazing way to really
Oh,
start to recognize your self-worth. And I love that you said exercise. I'm a big, big fan and a big encourager of exercise, because not only does it release the endorphins and dopamine, which allows you to boost your mood levels, but it also allows you to open up an awareness within you.
right. Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where, I had to try new things outside of my comfort zone to figure out what was really best for me. You know what I mean? And I tell people that too. In order to know yourself, you will have to find things that are right for you. You know what I mean? Because not everything is right for a particular person, you know? Um, so I had to try reading. Like, I gave reading a chance outside of school because I used to do that in school, but it was one of those things that I had to do, not what I wanted to do. And I had to find out what I would be interested in within that reading, right? Like, what would make me appeal to reading?
Right.
And so, I catch myself acting out the characters in the book, from time to time because
That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. I mean, that's putting yourself in other people's situations and seeing how you could relate. So I think that's actually pretty cool.
yeah, it allowed me to enjoy my reading a little bit more than I did before. Um, and I would catch myself doing little walks around the city, the area, because that's one of those things that you're in a heavy meditation when you're doing that. Um, I have my earphones in, probably ride my bike, you know, because those are things that I'm doing solo, right? And when
Right.
you're doing certain activities solo, it amplifies your mind because there's nothing there that is, trying to confuse you on anything. So you get a chance to have some time to put your ideas, have your original thoughts, and bring them together. You know what I mean? When you're
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're doing things by yourself, doing activities on your own, you know?
Yes, there's nothing better than having that alone time and being able to be within those moments by yourself, because that's when you're able to tap into that true energy that's within you. That's when you're able to truly think. I know a lot of people do walking meditation. So you just mentioned meditation when you're walking. There is a way that you can do walking meditation when you're in that state of consciousness and you're
Right.
truly just evoking, only pure thoughts and only what you want to bring into your mind at those moments. And it takes a little bit of practice, but
Oh, it
it's,
does.
yeah, I
You
don't
know
think
what?
I've mastered that yet.
Yeah, when I first started getting in on this journey, it was not an easy journey. You know what I mean? Like when I first started, a lot of things personally was being affected. It was that like, I couldn't go to college because my classes got shut down. It was the 2020 era and all this other stuff that was happening. So I had to really kind of just be like, all right, let me relax. You know what I mean? And I had cut my phone off for some time. You know, I had to I was trying to get into transition to find me full time work, like a consistent schedule, and I was trying to find that. But as I was doing that, it was a lot of stress that was building. So I had to find a way to kind of channel that stress into something that was, consistent. Both like, and I had to do journaling. Journaling. I had to do self inventories. I had to do a lot of stuff in order to kind of realize what I needed at that time. As I was doing that, I was organically building something, you know, and helping my mind, building my mind. And I was working and exercising that, which is not an easy task. Um, Certain stuff that I had resentment towards, that I had to really look at my resentment and really look it in the eye and be like, hey, look, no, I can't have that if I'm gonna walk this journey. You know what I mean? Like the resentment, I had to assess my resentment, and that was the hardest part of it, was assessing my resentment.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
because a
sure.
lot of people walk within life with resentment. I couldn't do that because it was tolling on me physically and mentally. So I couldn't have that resentment going forward. So I had to really burn down my resentment. so,
Yeah, no,
which is
that's it. That's so true what you're saying. I mean, that's amazing because when you hold resentment, you become almost a victim of those feelings and that anger. And it's
right,
almost like you're holding that grudge against yourself and against others. And that really holds you back in life. That holds you back
right,
from being able to be you and being able to work through all the things that you are feeling. So
exactly,
it's able, and I love that you were able to find that purpose of being able to release those resentments, because once
yeah,
you're able to do that, then you tap into that energy, like I said, that
exactly,
positive energy, which is able to really carry you through with more
exactly,
awareness and more ability to do all the things that you want to do. And
exactly.
but it's not easy. I mean, how did you begin to acknowledge that resentment?
Because really, you start off in a neutral stage. Because before the positive stuff starts ramping up, you gotta find what you generally enjoy, and that's
Right,
the hardest part, is knowing who you are as an individual when you're wrapped up in groups of people, or you're wrapped up in a certain unit. It can really kind of tear you away from your individualness. But the thing is, you in order to know who you are, you would have to really go deep, like, into who you are, because people be like, no, be who you are, but that's just saying it. You know what I mean?
right.
If
Yeah,
nobody knows
harder.
who if nobody knows who they are, it will be hard for them to find that out if they've never experienced it. So, for one, I had to look back in my childhood. I had to look at older interests. First, I started doing that. Like, what was I doing in high school? What was I doing in middle school? And why was I interested in these things? So, I had to look at reasoning. Like, what was my reason for doing certain things? Right? I had to look at that first. Before I had did a self inventory, I had to look at those things. Like, my reasoning for making music, what was that reason? And my reasons changed. You know what I mean? Because I had one reason as a kid. I was trying to be known by a lot of people. That was a terrible reason. I was like, no, that's not going to allow me to do this. Right?
Right,
And I looked at, when I was a teenager, how money was the thing that everybody was interested in. Nah, that was not a good enough reason. My third reason, right? So I had to find a fulfilling reason and an immortal reason for why I would do things.
right,
My reason for doing it was now is therapy. It's therapeutic, and it's something I actually want to do, right? For me. But see, when I came up with that reasoning, it was a much more better reasoning, right?
right.
So I had to look at certain reasonings for different tasks. Like, what is the reasoning that I would work out? What is the reason that keeps me waking up in the morning? And I had
Right.
to make that,
And
you
I'm
know.
sure as you were like diving into this process of understanding yourself better and understanding, like you said, the reasoning and going back into your childhood, which I love that you said that, and tapping into all those different experiences, I'm sure that must have dredged up some emotions
It
and some
did.
hurt and pain, which is a
It,
part of why a lot of people don't go through this process because it can be so painful, because
exactly.
it can release so much pain and hurt. But that's
And
part of the process, right?
and then you realize, like, yeah, that's part of the process, the pain process. That's why I tell people, you can't look at the time that went by, and really, you can't really look at it in such regretting eyes. right? You can't look at it like that because that process was necessary.
Right.
The stuff that I made mistakes on, yeah, when I first look back at how life used to be and why it was so vibrant back then versus when I went through all that pain, yeah, it did trigger up some things, right, within me. I was like, man, I wasted so much time with these friends of mine, that so-called friend of mine, this, and I had to look and step back and be like, no, you know what I mean? You can't look at it that way. You know what I mean? Like this
Right.
was necessary. This
Right.
you growing past this and moving on past this pain journey and all that, that's mandatory. That's necessary. So
Right.
I had to look at it in this a way where no, I can't be resentful for this. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, those are all experiences. You have to
And
sort of embrace them and accept them because that's a
and
part of who you are.
and then when you start to get to another level of it, you start to realize that the things that happen to you, right? You can look at them as life lessons, right? When you start to look at it as life lessons is when the positivity
Right.
really starts to get into effect because you're coming out of the hurt and going into something with much more with a growth mindset,
Right.
right? So now you're tackling it on with the open mindset versus a closed mindset. So me, I had to open up my mind to the possibilities. And when I started to open my mind up a little bit more to like, no, this was needed. The friends that so-called friends that did me wrong, the fakes, the so and so, that was needed. That was needed because I learned. You see what I'm saying? And now this
Right.
is a lesson that I needed. This was a story in my journey that was meant to be here. You know what I'm saying? So you start to look at it that way and you be like, man, I wouldn't trade none of this for the world. You see what I'm saying? I wouldn't trade
Right. All
anything
the bad,
bad,
all the good. Yeah.
all none of the bad for nothing. You know what I mean? Because that
Right.
was a part of my story. And every journey is different. So when you start to look at things that way, and start to look at, okay, I wasn't angry at what happened. I was angry at the intent. You start to look at things a little bit more clearly. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Because you're reframing your perspective on the situation and you're thinking about it
exactly.
in a different way. Do you recall that moment that you were able to make that shift in your mindset or that time or that period that came that you said, you know what? I'm just fed up and I want to change. I want to evolve. I want to transform. Can you recall or pinpoint the time that that came?
That came like 10 months ago, actually. You know what I mean? It came a while ago. Because I had to, when I started journaling and being consistent with a schedule, because my sleep was out of control before. You know what I mean? I wouldn't get
Right.
any sleep. I was out there just trying, I was a workhorse for real. And, my mind was everywhere. And I had so many ideas that would kind of fog up what I truly needed to be doing. So at that time I had to get into journaling. And I remember when I made that transition, it was EMS. EMS like came on the scene when I was at work because I just got a new schedule, everything was fine. But then I started to realize that when that happened, it was like, oh yeah, because I went into neuroshock. I went into neuroshock and it was something with my mind because it was overworking itself, right? My body was overworking itself and my mind was overworking itself. And I noticed that that was a message that God gave me because I was too young to have this happen to me at the time that it did. But it was a great thing that had happened to me because they told me, "Oh, this guy is young. He's too young to be having high blood pressure at 175."
Right. Right.
And so that's when I made that transition because it was like, okay, as soon as I got into a consistent schedule, my body was changing. And so it wasn't used to being consistent. So when that happened, it was a message from God saying, no, you need to be on this consistent schedule and keep going. You know
Right.
what I mean? Because things could have been worse if you were doing what you did before.
Right. Your
Um,
body always gives you signals. You just have to listen. So that was the first interview with Donovan. As you can tell, he's truly an amazing individual. He's a young man who's aspiring, he's motivated, he's got it together. So check it out. I'll be coming out with the second part of that interview pretty soon. Stay tuned and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can stay updated for my future podcasts. Don't forget to give me a follow on Instagram at Simply Healthy and Organic. You're listening to the Simply Real podcast with yours truly, Jennifer Maharaj.